With Season of the Deep's release, we have seen a lot of different balance changes, the biggest one being to the Starfire protocol. I've been seeing lots of panic about what the new best damage is going to be. Well, Mask of Bacchus is the answer. I feel as if the buff has been taken lightly, and its potential has not been fully realized. The buff it's received is absolutely massive, going from a stacking 10% DPS increase to a non-stacking 25%. Now that may sound like a nerf, because it no longer stacks with surge mods, but the 25% it now does is actually greater than having 3 surge mods equipped. Not only does the build have huge DPS potential, but it also has great neutral game. First, I'm going to be showing you how you're going to want to set up the build and what stats you're going to want to prioritize. Then I'm going to show you the damage potential that this build really holds. If you happen to find this build helpful or want to support the channel, please remember to drop a sub, as it really means a lot. Yep, let's get right into the build. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to talk about is the armor I'm using and the mods I have on it. So if you look at my armor set here, I have 100 mobility, 100 resil, and 80 strength. Those are the 3 most important stats for this build. You're also going to want to have decent discipline, but as long as you just have your grenade charged and you aren't just throwing it at all times, you'll be fine. You're going to want to make sure you have pretty good strength, because you're going to want to have your melee charges up, and you're going to want to have 100 mobility, so you always have your dodge. This is because how Bacchus works is when you dodge, you get a 25% damage increase to arc weapons. You also get that damage increase to enemies who are slowed, but for the purposes of this build, we are going to be focusing on arc weapons, because I feel like the slowed part is a little bit inconsistent. So for the mods, I like to use 2 siphons, so whatever element your primary is usually, so kinetic if you're using primary, if you're using Ikelos or something, you're going to be wanting to use arc siphon, and heavy ammo finder. This is really good, you know, it just gives you a higher chance of getting heavy ammo from ads. I'm also going to be wanting to use triple arc loader. Now, with the season artifact, arc loader costs less, because you can get this mod right here, and it goes from 3 to 1, so you can run 3 and a rezo mod or a recov mod, like the expensive mods, intellect mods, etc. Yeah, it's really helpful this season. You're gonna be wanting to pick this up and using triple loader. On the chestplate, you can usually just use concussive dampener, because it's just neutral, you know, any splash damage stuff do less damage. You don't need to be using reserves, because you're going to use a reserve chestplate when you rally and then switch back to it, so you don't really need reserves. Just have an arc and solar on, because it's just whatever activity you're playing, you switch those out. Then lastly, on the boots, this is a big one, because you're not using surge mods, so you have the opportunity to use scavengers, which isn't common. Last season, surge mods were glued to everybody's loadout, but this gives you a little bit more wiggle room, and now you can use scavenger mods. Or you can use holsters, but I think scavengers are the way better. Just gives you more bang for your buck, and it really synergizes well with the heavy ammo finder mod that you have on your helmet. And then for the class item, I use triple outreach, because you don't need to use time dilation, because once again, you're not using armor charge. You don't need it. So you have this freed up to use whatever you want. I use triple outreach just to make sure I'm getting my melee back when I use my class ability. Next, let's move on to the subclass. So you're going to be wanting to play Revenant Hunter, because you're going to need that for the Bacchus to work. Then you're going to be wanting to use Marksman Dodge, because it has a shorter cooldown than Gambler's Dodge, and it also reloads your weapon. And because you're using Bacchus, it actually doesn't affect the distance of the dodge at all. I use Triple Jump, that's just complete preference. The Withering Blade, only melee. And then I use Dustfield Grenades, because I think they're the best grenade. You can really use whatever you want here, but it's just nice to be able to apply slow and clear ads. So the absolutely most important fragment you're going to want to have, this is needed, 100% necessary, is Whisper of Impetus. So what this does is when you damage targets with your melee, it reloads your weapon. It's sort of like Demolitionist, but it works on every weapon, and it's with your melee instead of your grenade. What I also use is Whisper of Conduction, Whisper of Durance, Whisper of Shards, and Whisper of Chains. This is mostly just for the stat boost that I get. But, you know, because the 10 resil, the 10 recov, and another 10 resil here, you can pretty much use whatever you want here if you think something's better than what I'm using. But the most important one is Whisper of Impetus. You 100% need this, and I'll be showing you why. I almost forgot about the aspects. What you're going to want to use is Touch of Winter. This just makes your grenade better, so it makes your dust field bigger and spawns a crystal on the side of it. and you're going to want to use Grim Harvest. This gives you 3 fragment spots, and it also makes it so when you defeat someone affected by stasis, they create a shard, and when you pick up a shard, it gives you melee energy. And if you haven't realized already, this build has lots to do with using your melee to reload your weapons. Next up is the weapons. So I actually like to use a Monte Carlo. It received a auto rifle buff at the end of last season, and what it does is when you deal damage, you get your melee cooldown, and when you get a kill, you have a chance to just fully get your melee back. I like using it because of Whisper of Impetus. They synergize really well. You just get your melee, you throw it, and you can use the Monte Carlo, get it back again. You know, it's rinse, recycle. For my secondary, when I'm doing DPS, I like to use the Irritive Loop with Volt Shot. This just pretty much neutrally increases your damage by applying Jolt to enemies. You can use pretty much any gun with Volt Shot that you want, but I just like to use the Fusion Rifle because it's really easy to get the kill and apply it. And for heavy, you can either use a Hothead, which I know a lot of people have a Hothead. It's really easy to get. You get it from Vanguard. The Blowout, which is the Crucible version of the Hothead essentially. It also has a very good perk pool. Or you can use the Thunderlord. Now the Thunderlord is, known as being a weird pick for damage. Some people think it's good, some people think it's great, but with this build, it is super good. It's not only good for damage, but it's really good for ad clear too. So you just switch to an SMG or something and run Thunderlord. Your primary doesn't really matter when you're using a machine gun because machine guns have such deep reserves nowadays. Alright, so I'm out here in patrol just so I can explain a little bit better how the damage rotation is going to work. So basically, because your dodge reloads your gun and it also gives you the damage boost, what I like to do is I like to use my dodge after I shoot my first rocket. So your first rocket doesn't actually gain the increased damage, but that's alright. You have so many more rockets, and in my opinion, this is the most efficient way because anyways, you're not going to be able to shoot every single rocket while you're having the buff, and at least this way you can utilize the reload dodge. So the damage rotation does matter a little bit based on what kind of gun you're using. So I found that Demolitionist works the best because you can just use your grenade as an extra reload. So in that case, what you're going to want to do is shoot, dodge, shoot, melee, shoot, grenade, shoot, reload, shoot, melee, shoot. So I can show what that looks like right here. It's going to look something like this. You're going to want to shoot, melee, shoot, melee, shoot, grenade, shoot, and you're going to want to reload, and then shoot, melee, shoot. So that's what the rotation looks like, and at the end you also can pop your super. So that is, in my opinion, the most efficient way for rockets, and it is also some of the most DPS in the game. I'm going to now go over to showing it off in a boss situation and what that looks like.
Some of the damage was me. I was just fucking around. But... yeah, 2.1, bro. I forgot. That's like similar to pre-nerf Starfire.
As you heard my buddy say there, the damage is indeed similar to pre-nerf Starfire. So hunters are back on the table as the DPS champs. I personally was super surprised by the damage of the Thunderlord. I did know it was pretty good last season. People like to use it on Nezarec, but it still never rivaled the damage of Starfire and Rockets. But now, as you saw in the comparison there, it was pretty much neck and neck, the Thunderlord keeping up with Rockets. And that's just crazy. Once again, guys, if you enjoyed, please remember to leave a comment and subscribe. I am looking to make another video on either Warlocks or Titans. If you guys have a suggestion, please leave a comment down below on what class I should make my next video on.